We'll talk about jealousy. This is directed to other males, of course. Not everybody, but I think there's a big need out there. And if the shoe fits, wear it. Jealousy is, in case you didn't know, like a true beta characteristic. Jealousy is completely and utterly a beta characteristic. I'm telling you right now. You know, I think today, males, they have this picture of themselves or this image of themselves, so they place themselves here, and the reality is that they're not there. They're not that. And it's a damn shame that people live in a lifetime, decades and decades, and look in the mirror and still lie to themselves. You know, I think that's a shame, man. And I think part of it is because, I'll save this for another video. Let's stick with jealousy. Jealousy is a completely and utterly is a beta characteristic. And I'm talking about jealous over the next man, what he possesses, what he has, who he is, his status, whether it be status, whether it be wealth, whether it be possessions, materialistic possessions, or even characteristics. Jealousy, that is a thing that's not part of my lexicon. It's not any thread that is embodied within the fucking material that I'm made of. I've never been that. I'll give you an example. When I was a kid, as a child, I was bullied. My little child's brain could only find two alternatives there. Number one, I didn't like it, okay, so it's a problem, we got to find a solution, all right? And I'm still like that to this day. If there's a problem, we need a solution. There's no point in just having a problem if you're not going to come up with a solution. If you're not going to render a solution, then what are you doing? You know, stop complaining yourself. You don't mind that. It's not really a problem. It's part of your life, and you've accepted it, and you're allowing it to continue. You're enabling it, in other words, because you haven't rendered a solution. Okay, so even as a child, I knew I needed a solution. My little child brain at the time, I'm thinking two things. I don't have two choices. This is me then. I either need to run a lot faster, or I have to learn how to defend myself. I need to be able to defend myself. I've told this story multiple times. I'm not going to tell it and get into it, waste time again. So I learned how to defend myself. I learned how to fight. Things just fell into place, the universe being what it is. And, so I went on, I fought competitively, I taught, on and on for a long, long time. And then I came to a place where, I'm clearly not bullied anymore. In fact, I kind of was very well known as somebody that, was pretty competent and could take care of himself. And it's not like I'm making this shit up out of thin air. There are many, many people out there that remember me. There are people out there that I run into who they tell me, man, my dad grew up with you and blah, 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 certain parts of town I go into. As I got older, a little bit older, still a young guy, I wasn't really comfortable with my appearance. I just never was. I wasn't. It was still a vestige that hung in there. I could fight. I wasn't afraid. I didn't get picked on. All that was resolved for years. But I wasn't happy with my appearance. I felt like I was skinny. I felt like I was underweight and looked scrawny. I had abs and shit. I was lean and fit, very fit. But I only weighed, what did I weigh, man? At that moment, I was probably about 155, maybe 160, maybe not even that, maybe 150, 155, So I saw a friend of mine had a book. It was Lou Ferrigno. It was like an encyclopedia of bodybuilding with Lou Ferrigno. And I'm leafing through that. I don't know I know who Lou Ferrigno is from the Incredible Hulk series. That's it. So I'm leafing through there. I don't know nothing about bodybuilding. Don't care nothing about bodybuilding. It seemed like a weird ass thing to me. Wasn't interested at all. But he demonstrated all these exercises in there, and he talked about what he ate and how he was smaller when he was younger and what he ate to get big. And I never looked at that like people do today, kind of. There's a whole different way of thinking today. I never looked at that and said, I got to look like Lou. I want to be a bodybuilder. That's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be this huge mass monster. I'm going to be... No, never. I looked at that and said, can I have some of that? Can I get somewhere from here closer to there, even just a little bit? Can I gain a few pounds of muscle maybe, just look a little better? If I take on some of these accoutrements, some of these exercises, if I maybe eat a little bit better. You know, I didn't know what better was at the time eating-wise. All right, anyway. One thing led to another many decades later. You know, I was enormous. Now I'm down the other side of it, right? But good friend of mine that we trained together, fought together. He was older guy, came back from Nam. When I first started training, he had come in and started training. He was already a Golden Gloves boxer, Marine. He was a professional mechanic. He was a gearhead. Grease monkey, as we were called back then, basically. And he had all these cool cars. He always had great cars. He had a GTO with a six-pack on it that would pull the wheels off the ground. This is on the street back in that time. He had a 56 Chevy, most beautiful blue. He painted it. He could paint, he could wrench, he could build transmissions, engines, and he'd do it all, right? And so he had this killer 56 Chevy. And he drove it for a while, and eventually he sold that. Then he had a 67 Camaro, and when he first brought it home, I saw it in his driveway, and it looked like junk. It looked like something hauled straight out of a salvage yard, total junk. All rusted out, nothing, no interior, all gutted, all messed up. Just a pile of rust. A couple years later, that car looked like it just rolled off the showroom floor. No bullshit. I drove it. I mean, it was freaking awesome. He redid everything in that car, you know. So I developed an interest in cars. I wanted to learn to turn wrenches because I realized, you know, I grew up in the 70s, so I grew up surrounded by really cool cars. And I realized if I want that, if I want to be able to have, you know, whatever kind of car I want, and I want it to go fast and all this cool stuff, then I should take a cue from him and learn how to turn wrenches. He tried to discourage me. He said, you know, do something else. It's hard. Your hands are you're always dirty, blah, blah, blah. You know, but of course he couldn't discourage me. And decades later, you know, I've had any car I wanted, any motorcycle I've wanted. I've had everything. I had a 1948 fucking Panhead. I had a first year Harley Davidson made a Panhead. I had one of those. I just had on and on and on. I've had all kind of cars. All kind of cars, from Porsches, and I'm not talking about cheap ones. I'm talking about 911s and, you know, all kinds of cool shit. And I've had, you know, one little kick for a while. I had a lot of badass European sports cars, and I've had tons of muscle cars. I've had 2 Road Runners. I've had 3 Dodge Chargers. I had a 71st car I ever got. He helped me buy from a friend of his, also a Vietnam vet. Got a ridiculous deal on it when I was 15, and that was a 71 Dodge Charger with 383 and a 4-speed. And later on, I had a 69 Dodge Charger and a 68 Dodge Charger. So, I mean, I've had more things. I've had a 67 GTX. I've had tons of cars. I had whatever car I wanted to have, I've had, because like him, I learned how to do all this shit. I can paint, I can do body work, I can do engine work, I can do it all. So, you know, makes it easy to be able to have whatever mechanical apparatus you want, because I can just get it fucking junk, you know, and fix it if I want it that bad. So anything I haven't had by this time in my life is because I didn't really want it, because you have to work for things. You have to set goals and you have to work hard for things, more often than not. So if there are things that you want and you don't get them, then be realistic. Don't just go around being jealous and being, you know, miserable and shit and hating on people. Look in the mirror and face it. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's a route you could take to get to that if you wanted whatever that is. But there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of growing pains, there's more to it than just that. It just doesn't happen at the flip of a switch. And so, just like me, you know, if you don't have it, or you haven't gotten there, whatever it is you wanted or want to be, it's because you don't want to work for it. You don't want to work hard enough. Just like me, anything that I haven't had by now, it's because, when I weighed it out, it wasn't worth working hard for it, as hard as I needed to work to get it or what I needed to go through. It wasn't worth it, so I didn't do it. So I'm pretty satisfied that way. But jealousy, that's not even really part of my vocabulary usually. I mean, I don't, not from a first person perspective. I've never been jealous over something. There's nothing out there, there's no man, there's no human being walking the earth that I'm jealous of anything about. Because there's nothing out there, I believe, and I have never been proven wrong yet in life in 60 years, is that if I really wanted that badly, I would go after it and try to achieve it. I would move in that direction toward it. Now, of course, you gotta be realistic too. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying I want to walk on the moon. Though if I wanted to walk on the moon badly enough, from an early point in my life, I guess I would have tried to find a direction to head toward that. But that's just not, I didn't, try to be a little more realistic than that. A little more down to earth. So, but this is the way these modern males, they think. They're jealous. They're jealous of what their neighbor has or who he is or, me, I bit more see characteristics in people. I identify characteristics as I've come along through the decades. And that's why I gravitate toward, try to contour my direction to more mimic that, to run alongside of what that person did maybe. And I got to find my own path, which it may be different here and there, but, want to learn how to turn wrenches? You set out there on the job training, your schools you can go to, get with a dealership and they send you to all these factory, schools for all these factory trainings and certifications and all this other bullshit. And the main thing is you have to put the time in. You have to put the fucking time in. That's what people lack today, I think, for the most part. I think that's why things are the way they are. It's like with anything, people want big arms. Okay, but they don't want to work. They just don't want to work, and you see the jealousy is just ridiculous. Everybody's jealous over everything that they're not. And that begs me to ask, it begs the question, well, what do you have? What about you are you happy about? What aspect of you pleases you? Happiness comes from within. You understand that, right? No one else is responsible for your happiness except for you. And it's the same thing, with an ex-girlfriend or anything like that. I've never wanted what any other person had for someone else. I want whatever they have for me. That's what I want. I want mine, right? I don't want what somebody else has in any regard. I want my own. So, but for it to even occur to somebody, oh, this person's jealous of that or that person's jealous of this, that's deflection and projection. To even have that train of thought, to even arrive at that conclusion, it's very indicative. It tells something about you, that you are those things. And if you watch people, they will show you who they are because that's what they do. They project and deflect. The first people that accuse you of anything or whatever, that's what they do. That's their practice. That's part of their makeup. That's usually a good giveaway. Anyway, so any young dudes out there, man, if you can take anything away from this or not, man, get rid of that jealousy shit. There's no reason to be jealous. For one thing, you're never going to have anything forever anyway. You know what I mean? Like even the motorcycles and the shit that I have, I get great enjoyment out of them. They're inanimate objects. They're not as important as people. Dry throat, excuse me. Even the motorcycles that I have, I get great enjoyment out of them. They're not as important as people. And ultimately, I realize they're only mine temporarily. You got that, right? You don't really ever own anything for infinity. Okay, so get your priorities in order. If your priorities are still totally just materialistic possessions, that's indicative to me of an immature id. But teach their own. I got my hands full just dealing with who I am and who I need to be, and the route, that other direction I'm going, then give too much thought to who anybody else is being. But I'm just my opinion, my best advice, like even if you buy a piece of property and you pay it off, you still never quit paying. You continue to pay taxes for it. And even the things that you buy that you don't keep paying taxes on, I don't know what the hell those things are, but you own, they're only yours for a short time. They're yours for now. When you die, where are they going? They're not going with you. They're not going with you. The most likely scenario is all the shit that you have acquired over a lifetime that's been important to you, you're just going to leave behind, and it's going to be a pain in the ass for somebody else to have to deal with and go through. It's going to be a heartache and a pain in the balls for somebody else to have to sort through all of it and liquidate it. More than likely. It isn't going to mean necessarily to anybody else what it's meant to you. So being jealous over possessions and being jealous over what anybody has or what anybody's accumulated or acquired, that's got to be the worst of it. Now, if you're jealous because somebody else just seems to have more peace, just seems to have more harmony in their world or their lives, or they seem to have a higher level of satisfaction and happiness with themselves and their lives than you have, that's not anything to be jealous of. But if you want that for yourself, you can't have theirs. You just can't. So don't hate them for that. But they can serve as maybe an example to you, or as a beacon that you can say, wow, I would like to be more like that. And then you can formulate a plan. You're not unintelligent. You can formulate a plan to how you can get there so you can have some of that for yourself. That person still has theirs, so you can have yours in your life.